gentlemen, Starmaker by Olaf Stapledon. I guess the way I have to describe this book is that it is extremely compelling. And that's a really good thing in this case, because it was so hard to read that I would have performed a did not finish on this sucker if I wasn't so damned interested on what was being presented here and where it was going. I sort of had to know. But man, this thing, it's like he was trying to over-philosophize every single sentence in the book. Or it's like written abstractly or something. I had to keep going back to sentences going, what in the hell is that supposed to mean? It doesn't mean anything. It's just gobbledygook. So I shoved through it. It's only 200, this version is only 250 pages. And I'm glad I did it. Actually, I'm glad I experienced it, because there are some big, awesome happenings in here. It's just, I can't recommend it for people. It's just so goddamn tough to get through. So, the setup of this book, I don't remember there being a year named into the book. Itself came out in 1937. There is a man from London. He steps out of his house, climbs up on this hill, and he's contemplating existence. He has at least had a happy marriage, and I think the way he worded it was something along the lines of he still loves his wife, but they're together out of convenience. And so he's just, I don't know, bored, I guess. But he's contemplating the universe, and all of a sudden, whoosh, away goes his mind. It doesn't give a reason for it. Off goes his mind into the cosmos. Here, the scale starts changing, and the first part of that scale is it's interstellar. His mind goes out, starts wandering around. He starts experimenting with it. If I will myself this way, I can go that way. If I will it this way, I can go that way. And sure enough, he can go way faster than the speed of light, although everything else is limited to the speed of light. So off he goes, and he starts exploring stars. And finally, he comes to a star system very far away, and in it is a world. And he goes in, and he actually finds out that he can essentially put his mind into the mind of another person. I should say person. Some of the aliens encountered are indeed humanoid, but if they were walking down the street, you'd pick them out in a minute as something that isn't actually one of us. In this case, I think the first one's walking around shirtless with green fur all over them, something like that. And so, when he says there's no characters, there's only one named character, and that's this being that he puts his mind into. His name is booktube, but it starts with a B. It's like a silent B, I guess. And so they explore that civilization. Now this carries throughout the book. This is pre-World War II, and even then, in 1937, obviously we had people with different ideologies, and you had people who were trying to categorize other people, so to put them in a place that you could pass judgment on. World War II was coming. An attempted genocide was going to happen, and a lot of that is expressed here. So there's a lot of talk about how economy should work, and how communism or not, or liberal things, conservative things, it's all sitting in here. So the most detailed civilizations are the first few, and what happens with him in Ball2 is their minds start to join together a bit, and they take off. Whoosh, they're gone. And they wind up going so far they can't find their way back to his world, and he couldn't even find his way back to Earth, so they got kind of no choice. They just got to go. With each successive trip, scales start to change a bit. And so you go interstellar, intergalactic, or I should say galaxy-wide, then intergalactic, then universal, and then even multi-universal. Before we get there, in the galaxy, they start picking up other minds, and when they start to meld together, even states, I'm just a new version of I'm just a new person, blended together from all these other people. Telepathically, they can go out and explore. But everything else is just limited, so they can go in and peek in and learn about all these civilizations. Wars start to break out. There is a lot of what he calls religious, fever, but it might not necessarily be spiritual, though it can be. It could just be that all your ideas you're so into, you're going to spread it across the galaxy. And so as they encounter civilizations and explore them, they start seeing them build space habitats. A lot of time starts passing. Building space habitats, using their solar system for material, building material around stars to capture that energy, and then sending your warships out to go preach to each new civilization you meet and take it over. And so wars break out. Some civilizations commit suicide. It's like, well, we're not joining you, and kill themselves off and make their stars blow up to try to take them with them. As it goes on, there is a symbiotic civilization detailed in here that as the war progresses, they decide to intervene. And things start to get a little more coherent between them. And this group mind starts to expand. And you start getting Dyson spheres. And all of them start getting telepathically interconnected. So you have how to do this? Let me back up a second, because when he gets to the first world, I had to look this up because I couldn't believe I had read this in here. This actually isn't the first mention of an internet. Apparently Mark Twain beat everybody to it in books, because he had a story called from the London Times, and in it there was an invention that was essentially the telephone, but it seemed a little more involved with the way you could communicate with people. And so it was the first kind of internet thing going on. And Nikola Tesla, he thought about doing the same thing but wirelessly for real, and it just never got off the ground, at least during his time. So in this, what's funny though, so he gets to this world and radio waves send information, and people are carrying these people, humanoids, aliens, they have devices that they carry on them that they can look up the information, just like we do with our phones and our computers. But there's one extra thing. You can also get a skull cap, and so it's like a VR system. So the radio waves come in, but it's also able to induce thought, and right away they start sending sexual virtual reality into people's minds. It's the internet being used for pornography, imagined in 1937. I thought that was something. So I had to look this up. I'm like, so that's what I found out about Mark Twain and Tesla, that they had thought of this, but this could be the first one that predicted the future of, well, surfing the web for you know what. Beyond that though, you start getting into a galactic connection, and then into an intergalactic connection. Dyson spheres are mentioned here, at least Dyson himself, Freeman Dyson, who the term was coined for. He got a little more detailed about what they might look like and so forth, and so they became called Dyson spheres, but they should have been called, according to even Dyson, Stapledon spheres. So later on, another fellow by the name of Robert not Ray Bradbury, but Robert Bradbury, the Invisalign, I can't talk, took it a step further and imagined a cloud of material encircling a star that could think. And so you get this thing that could process the entire history of human thought in a few millionths of a second. So he's kind of doing that in here with telepathy and Dysonian civilizations, but doesn't really come up with that kind of ability to process anything. But then everyone is connected, a big group mind, galactic, intergalactic, across the universe. And finally, we learn what this term means, starmaker. Now, if you're not going to read this, stick around. If you are, you might want to just go away, because I guess this would be the spoiler section to let you know how this is going to go. So, the starmaker is a creator. This is who they were looking for. They wanted to find why all this exists, who put it here. you could call it God. It is described, when he first encounters it, as a very, like a star in itself. Throughout this, everything thinks. Nebulas think, stars think. So everything is sentient. And so this is the most oldest sentient thing, this super bright, huge star. And it creates universes. So the universe that the narrator starts in was just its latest version. It describes, for example, toying around with previous universes, and one of them was made of nothing but music. And so he goes to meet it, and he's like, I'm going to go out and touch it. And it pretty much just slaps him down. Like, get away from me. So it's described as like an artist who does the painting, and then, well, I'm done with that. He's kind of indifferent to everything. At one point, it is described as having split itself off, and so you get God and the devil, and they make their own little baby universes, so you get a heaven and hell. Apparently one C.S. Lewis, author of Narnia, big Christian fellow, called it devil worship in this book. So what happens then, the narrator is then, in the end, once he's finally got to that point, sent back to his body on Earth, and there he is on his hill, right where he was, right where he started, feeling enlightened about the universe, and a bit happier for it. So like I said, it's just big ideas, which were enough to get me through it. Otherwise, this is a difficult read, too abstract in a lot of its prose. But I think deservingly a classic of science fiction. I read too, funny, Olaf Stapledon didn't know what science fiction was. And until people started praising him for this book, he's like, oh, that's what science fiction is? I didn't even know. And he had written that. Next. I am going to, I just picked this up, impulse buy. I've never heard of this before. The Cat Who Saved Books. And as I read the description, this cat shows up and he crosses dimensions to save books who are being abused in some way or another. Not a long book, should get through that one pretty quickly, next couple of days, I guess. That is next in front of the TBR, but the TBR, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books sitting there that I am doing next that are on the TBR. So unless something else catches my eye, I'm going for that. That's it. Wanted to do a quick one on Starmaker, classic science fiction story by Olaf Stapledon. Thank you. I hope you have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.